Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our panel discussion on planned giving. My name is David Sweet, and I am the planned giving officer here at the Exploratorium. It's really special for us to have these events. This is one of two annual Oppenheimer Circle events. The Oppenheimer Circle is the group of donors who have given a planned gift to the Exploratorium. So I know on this, particularly in the Zoom, there'll be a mix of people who are already on the Oppenheimer Circle, affectionately called Oppies. And there are people who might well want to join at some point, so we welcome them as well. So why don't I introduce this guy over here to my right and his team as well, and then I can give the mic to him and off we go. Okay, so this is Jason Nossiter. He is a principal and financial advisor in the San Francisco office of Bernstein Private Wealth Management. In his practice, Jason partners with nonprofits, family offices, corporate executives, and entrepreneurs to help them achieve their unique investment goals and wealth planning objectives. Jason is joined by Marisa, who is via Zoom. Marisa brings 20 years of nonprofit operating, fundraising, and governance experience to Bernstein, including development leadership roles at the Art Institute of Chicago, the Center for Nonprofit Management, and Hands on Nashville. Since joining Bernstein in 2022, Marisa has partnered with dozens of leading organizations and philanthropists in refining their mission, leveling up their fundraising strategy and governance, and for donors and stakeholders, uncovering their why. Also joining us is Sivan Krems, who's sitting right over there. She joined Bernstein in 2023 after client-facing roles at BlackRock and Attentive. Sivan brings a deep passion for understanding clients' personal priorities to her work as an advisor, along with the competitive drive and of an elite athlete. She captained the D1 tennis team at Princeton, after all, to help them achieve their goals. And with that, I'll give the mic over to Jason.
David, thanks so much. Thanks, Marisa. Great to see you here on Zoom. And thanks to everybody joining us virtually as well as here in the room at Pier 15. So excited today representing Bernstein with my dear business partners and friends, Marisa and Sivan. For those of us joining virtually, we just did an awesome Growing Your Giving values exercise here in the room. So everyone is primed and thinking about giving, which we love. So, I want to make today's discussion as dynamic, as interactive as possible. Love to get questions both from in the room as well as on the call to Marisa, to David, to myself. Maybe just to situate us in context a little bit. Marisa, you have the deck handy. Do you mind going up to slide 3 there?
And while we're working on that, Jason, would you mind just for my information, just a little bit more about who's in the room today? I would love to hear that.
Yes, absolutely. So joining us in the room today, Marisa, is the Oppenheimer Circle of the Exploratorium. These are folks who have made planned gifts to the Exploratorium. Sivan and I have had the pleasure of getting to know everybody in the room. In many cases, folks here have been giving and volunteering for the organization for decades. Just remarkable supporters of, really one of the cornerstone science and innovation institutions in the world. Which, coming from San Francisco, that makes sense. There's a definite cultural fit. And, in the exercise, we uncovered a lot. I think one of the common themes and priorities was really around education and then also around impact, that these are really things that are driving folks in the room to support the Exploratorium and other great organizations. So, maybe, rather than sort of getting stuck with the Zoom and with the pages, I'll just share briefly. I touched a little bit on my intro in the room about Bernstein. I think one of the things that's unique about Marisa and Sivan and our role with our clients is that we really work with both donors as well as with operating organizations. And Marisa, maybe you want to share just a little bit about your work in the nonprofit world and what brought you to Bernstein and what your day-to-day looks like today.
Absolutely. And thank you. I think if Jason has already mentioned this, I know we were expecting another member of my team, and I'm just excited to be here with you today. And I wish it were under different circumstances, but she had a family emergency. So thank you so much for your grace and welcoming me in. So our team is called the Foundation and Institutional Advisory Team, and we partner very closely with Jason and team to support all angles of our philanthropic business. So in some cases, that looks like one of our foundation clients. We have about 1,000 clients in the social sector. Half of those are foundations, half of those are nonprofits. So sometimes it's supporting a foundation in their charitable giving strategies. Where would they like to give? To which types of organizations? How can they increase their mission, vision, and values to really just increase their impact and increase the incredible work that they're doing? With our nonprofit organizations, we focus most of our time on governance practices, operations streamlining, and then a lot of great donor engagement and development support. So we know that every organization has, I shouldn't say every, a lot of organizations struggle with what it means to have a lean team. It's really great. You can pivot quickly, but you also benefit from the extension of some added bandwidth. So that's really where we come in. So 100% of our time spent just really supporting any of the kind of FAQs and requests that we get from that entire audience.
Marisa, with our foundation institutional advisory team, we meet very frequently, and I think the trends in giving actually move faster. People think philanthropy is kind of a slow moving world, sleepy. It's anything but. We're in the new year. We're in January 2024. What are kind of the top trends in philanthropy right now? What should we expect for this year in giving?
Right. So, I think one thing that is remarkable about this year is, or maybe not remarkable, but it definitely looks different from any other start of the year in recent past, is just a really a focus on how to manage this continued uncertainty. We've seen a ton of fluctuations in not only charitable giving, but even how the markets are affecting how both grantees are seeking dollars and how those donors are responding to that. So before I get into the trends, just a couple of recaps on last year's Giving USA report. We found that in both corporations and foundation giving, while they were up, their inflation adjusted giving was actually down. So corporations were up by about 6.4%, and then with inflation actually down by just over 4%. With foundation giving, we found that it was up by 2.5%, but down by 5% when adjusted for inflation. With individuals, this is really where we found that there was the most potential for impact growth. So charitable giving in the individual category is 73% of overall national giving, which is substantial, right? About 65% of that comes from individual gifts at all levels. And then another 8% of that, so a total of 73, comes from bequests, so legacy giving. Jason, I'm kind of moving quickly here. Would you like me to touch on anything else, or should I move on?
I actually think, Marisa, this is an incredible segue to David as our plan giving officer here at the Exploratorium. David, would you mind sharing how both plan giving and how endowment giving can work at the Exploratorium and why they're so critical?
Great, thanks, Jason. So plan giving has been a recent focus at the Exploratorium, with my job being created for the specific purpose of focusing on planned giving. Anyone can give a planned gift. Endowments are a little different. So planned gift is just, I promise that I'm going to give you X number of dollars, or maybe X percent of my IRA, or X percent of my estate. It really depends on what you find is right for you. So endowments are more money. They usually start around 100,000 and go up from there. And usually people endow to help fund programs. So as opposed to just saying, here's the money in a regular planned gift and use it as you would like, this would maybe an endowment would fund a program like the High School Explainers or the Teachers Institute, as an example. And what happens is we invest the money that you give us and in perpetuity, and take some of the interest off the top as a result, On average, the stock market goes up 7% a year in the long run. So we take 4.5% to be safe, because some years are bad years, and that's just it's going to happen. So that helps fund programs. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for the feedback. So anyway, so that's how an endowment works. We are interested in anyone who's interested in either just a planned gift or an endowment gift, to sit and talk with them about their thoughts about it and what they believe is important to them, and really find the right solution for them in helping us with the Exploratorium's planned giving. So
that's tremendous, and thank you for the guidance too for donors and supporters on the call around the size. Like what does this actually look like? What does it mean? And working with a dozen leading organizations here in the Bay Area and beyond, and then hundreds of that are our clients at Bernstein. What I can't stress enough is the sense of operational confidence and strength that organizations that do have an endowment operate with, and to be able to have that ability to focus strategically instead of just having the general operating funds to spend from. That really gives organizations the leverage to think in the future about how to grow their mission and grow their impact in a way that I know resonates a lot for the folks on this call and in the room today. Marisa, I'm going to turn it back to you. What are some things that donors should think about where maybe this year won't be, a double digit year for their portfolio the way that it was in 2023? How can folks who are philanthropically inclined still continue to support the causes that they care about, even when maybe the balances in their portfolios aren't where they'd like them to be?
Yeah, well, that's a perfect segue to our next topic. So device funds and some non-traditional assets, those are the things we'd love to talk about next. So, I think when there's a lot of great stats here, and I'll touch on some of them that I think are really surprising and supportive to impact focused organizations. But just using donor advised funds when you're not quite sure where you'd like to put your charitable dollars, it's a great place to park them. We know that obviously starting your own donor advised fund is an option. We also know that there's quite a substantial amount of donor advised funds with community foundations. But just starting with, where have donor advised funds grown? What kind of what trends have we seen in this type of charitable vehicle? And then we'll talk a little bit about how we're seeing organizations use them. So I think, the standout stat on the top right here, since 2018, we've seen the quantity of donor advised accounts go almost double. So just substantial growth. A lot of philanthropists are choosing this as a great strategy to say, let's give to this year, and I have some time to think through it over the next few years. Or if I've given in the past, I'd like to use my donor advised fund as opposed to giving, keeping the giving kind of off of my own balance sheet. I think another point to call out here that I think is really astounding, the yellow box on the right, donor advised funds pay out 20%. So if you think about foundations as a structure and foundations who are supporting grantee organizations, typically they give right around their 5% minimum required distribution. So donor advised funds are actually, blowing them away and giving really substantially to organizations. So a lot of generosity there. I think that's really important because you'll sometimes hear some confusion and a little wariness from grantee organizations who are saying, funds are sitting in donor advised funds. We're not seeing as much from certain donors. They're parking those funds in donor advised funds. And I think what we actually see through the trends is that there's quite a bit of generosity coming out of donor advised funds. The last point I'll make here, and then we can get into the next slide, is just that $12 billion in grants are being made from community foundation DAF. So again, a lot of substantial giving there, but Jason can help you talk through if this is a strategy you're interested in. He helps a lot of donor advised funds, other philanthropists who are considering donor advised funds. And then I'll just touch on really quickly so another thing we're seeing in an economic slowdown, this is not surprising, that there's some gifting of non-traditional assets. So again, keeping that giving kind of off of your balance sheet, whether it's collectibles, fine art, jewelry, even real estate. We know that we're working with quite a few organizations who've had to update their gift acceptance policy. So at the bottom of this page is sort of some strategies for if you as a donor are giving to an organization, where can you help them? Where can you tell them to start? And it really does start with that gift acceptance policy. I think of it kind of as a strategic plan for your gift acceptance. So when donors, or excuse me, when grantees want to speak to you and other donors, they can say, we know exactly how we are able to take your generosity and make sure that those pieces are transitioned into a philanthropic gift. So we have a template for that if that's ever of interest to you. But the real point there is that piece, along with an organization's strategic plan and then their investment policy statement, really gives them a comprehensive look at how they'd like to manage their philanthropy throughout the year. And then a couple other pieces we advise organizations to keep in mind is to partner with experts who can help you convert those assets, whether that's a partner like Charitable Solutions, who we've worked with, the Fine Art Group. There are organizations out there who can maximize those donations for you as a donor and make sure that they're landing with the greatest impact for your organizations. And then the final point here is just a reminder to organizations to really speak to their donor base to make sure that that message is communicated. Jason, anything else on these points?
Thanks so much, Marisa. I'd say two key takeaways. First, just on the donor advised funds. Florence and I were actually in the room here talking about this a little bit earlier. This is an incredibly powerful tool because one of the things that came out in our values exercise that came up for a number of donors is the importance of tax benefits, right? When they're thinking about giving. Setting up a donor advised fund is really a way to get the tax benefit of giving now, and then, make those gifts not necessarily in the same year. You can do it over multiple years. So maybe you sold some appreciated stock earlier in the year. Maybe you had a big windfall from your business or from an asset that you own. Donor advised funds give you the opportunity to offset that and then take the time to tie into a conversation that Scott and I had, to take the time to identify, which causes you do want to support, and maybe do something more intentional like a planned gift or structured gift. But you've already created that pool of charitable capital and gotten the tax benefit in the first year. So disintermediating that I want to give from where do I give, but getting those benefits right away. That's really helped a lot of the clients that we work with to be more ambitious about their charitable endeavors than they may have considered. And then Marisa, on the piece about the non-traditional assets, just to sum up there, this is complicated. It takes some work. We really relish kind of rolling up our sleeves as thought partners and have built an independent network of experts. These are folks who don't get a kickback from Bernstein. We don't get a kickback from them, but they really are expert at helping get your classic car, your jewelry, your baseball card collection to a charity that you care about. And for folks that are interested in that, happy to help and talk through that more specifically. As a bit of a segue, we talked a little bit. David, we talked a little bit about endowment giving, right? And the sort of longer tail, larger term, bigger gifts. You guys have so many amazing programs here at the Exploratorium. I think one of the things that makes you amazing is that you implement your mission literally dozens and dozens of ways. What are some of the program-related gifts that folks can make, and how should they think about doing that?
Thanks, Jason. So you can always give to the general operating fund. You can always give to an operating endowment. That doesn't require any minimum at all. But when you want to make your own endowment to help fund a program, that's when we sit down together and talk about what's important to you. And then maybe you might want to target a certain program that would kind of fit what you envision your money going to use. So, for example, we have the Teachers Institute, where teachers teach the teachers in California State how to teach science. And it runs over the summer while the teachers are not working. We have a whole set of PhDs who are behind the project. And what they do is they teach the teachers with new materials and new strategies and such. And the teachers take that back to the classroom and teach their children what we taught them here. So Teachers Institute is really good if you want to help, education and children and things like that. Whereas something like the High School Explainers program is we have a bunch of high school students we hire and pay to be here on the weekends to explain to our visitors various things like how to cut a cow eye or how to do a magic trick or that kind of thing. They're here to help explain the Exploratorium. You'll find them in orange if you're here on the weekends. So since their program is we provide them salaries, we need funds in order to do that. So if you want to help high school students, again, education, we provide them a lot of personal growth opportunities with training them how to be really more like adults. And it helps them learn, high school students, different professional growth type of opportunity. So that's a really great way if that's what you're thinking with regard to not necessarily small children, which the Teachers Institute will focus more on, although they also teach teachers who teach high school. But this is particularly the high school explainers themselves. So those are two really good examples of programs that might be interested. Generally speaking, with the Exploratorium, funding things for children and education is a no-brainer because that's really what we do. So if you're interested in that, you can come and talk to me and tell me your thoughts about what you'd like to do, and I'll help guide you to the right solution for you.
Thanks, David. And again, I think, one of the challenges that a lot of donors have maybe when they look at an organization like the Exploratorium is to say, I love this place. How do I make the biggest impact? We talked around that question in our prep, but didn't address it directly. What would you say to a donor who came up to you today and asked that question?
Who wants to make the most impact?
Yeah.
Well, obviously more money, more impact, but separate from that. Other than that, it's really, again, it depends on what's important to you, in terms of what you would like to impact. For example, high school explainers, if you endowed $100,000, that would throw off $4,500 a year. That's not enough to fund one high school explainer salary. So maybe that's not, in terms of impact, what you're interested in, but you might want to impact maybe the Teachers Institute because they need materials and they need things to teach with, and all that has to be purchased, and you could help fund that. It really just depends how much you want to donate, what type of impact you can make. But that's really a matter of sitting down with me and talking about, here's what I have, how can you make this work the most impactfully in terms of even what areas am I interested in donating to, like education or children or whatever that is. So that's a conversation you sit with me, and ideally we come to a smart conclusion for you that you're very happy with.
That's brilliant. Well, talk to David and bring more money. Those are the two key takeaways. And I would say also, to the extent that you're thinking through, your capacity for giving, myself, along with Marisa and Sivan, we're delighted to be your thought partners in helping understand, based on your unique financial situation, what your capacity to give is and how to think about structuring that in a way that benefits the causes that you care about, like the Exploratorium, but also helping on the tax side and as part of your overall financial planning. Marisa, maybe do you want to pull the slides down? We've got just a few minutes here, and I want to make sure we have some time for Q&A. So would love to first look around the room and see, does anyone have any questions either for Marisa, for David, or for myself on anything that we've talked about today, or philanthropy in general?
This is working. Yes, I think it is. Okay, anyone with questions? Anyone?
How about on Zoom? Any questions on the call? Actually, it's webinar, right? It's webinar, right? So
No, it's not.
it's not webinar. Okay.
Are we getting any questions on the Zoom? No?
Heather's got a question. Thanks, Heather. That's perfect.
So it's a really quick question, actually. I heard that things are changing this year with DAFs, and there's some big changes, and there hasn't been a while. Can you elaborate on that anymore? What that's about?
We are in the midst of finalizing a pretty extensive paper on this topic. So there are some shifting regulations, and rather than me blunder them, I'd love to share that paper with you. A member of our legal team just released it, I think, as we speak yesterday. So Jason, if that works for you, I'll send you a link to it. And we can make sure that we share that out.
That's great. And I think that, the biggest change that's coming is, DAFs have been a kind of, I don't want to say a dumping ground, but like a holding spot for assets. And, the size of them for folks who don't give out has grown. So creating some policy around potential forced distribution, like with private foundations, is likely in the near offing, which from a social sector standpoint, I think is a great thing, right? One of the messages that we share with our clients is, you need to deplete that DAF. It's not doing anything for the causes that you care about just sitting there. Like, you can replenish it again. But I think that's one of the pieces that's certainly in the offing, and we'll share that white paper around, Heather, to you, and you can share with the rest of the community as well when we have it.
Any other questions? Yep, we got Herb.
Just trying to figure out things like mandatory withdrawals from IRAs and how to manage those things and what advantages there are to work with them.
Absolutely. So with respect to the required minimum distribution from an IRA, one of the really powerful tools that a lot of our clients use who have both taxable as well as retirement assets on their balance sheet is something called a qualified charitable distribution. And what that does is it actually lets an IRA participant give up to $100,000 from their IRA every year, and they don't get a tax deduction from that gift, but they avoid any ordinary income tax from the withdrawal from their IRA, which they would incur if they took it as a taxable distribution. So that paired with other strategies like a DAF and like gifts of appreciated stock, really tax efficient ways to give, but certainly something to think about if you have to take a required minimum distribution from an IRA or a 401k account, but you don't need to spend the money. It's a great way to support the organizations. From the organization standpoint, they don't care. It's dollars in the door. It helps them. And as I said, you avoid that ordinary income tax hit as you would from the required distribution. Does that help?
Any other questions? You got a question?
In regards to DAFs, are those contributions, can they be matched by the employer if there is a matching gift program within the company?
So giving into a DAF or giving from a DAF? Giving from a DAF can certainly be matched by most. It's definitely going to be based on based on the company, but generally speaking, those can be matched by corporates. I know at Alliance Bernstein, where we have a refreshingly generous, we'll say, corporate matching program, there you can make gifts with your DAF that then will get matched by the employer. That's a great question. And if you are working somewhere and you're giving and you're not getting those matches, do it, because that's a huge way to grow your impact as well.
Great. That was a really good question. Any other questions? Feel free to just anything you think. Doesn't matter what the topic is, as long as it's planned giving.
Or the Exploratorium. There's some experts in the room.
Yeah, we know a little bit about it. No? I definitely would like to talk about tax efficiency with planned giving. So I think it's really important for people to understand that there are smart strategies in terms of trying to avoid taxes with regard to what type of assets you put in your planned gift. Particularly, we talk a lot about IRAs. IRAs are actually the simplest planned gift because all you need to do is change your beneficiary to whatever percentage of the IRA you'd like to go to the Exploratorium. So for example, you'd like the Exploratorium to get 20% of your IRA because you have other charities you'd like to give and so on. That's the best way to do it because, first of all, changing a beneficiary form, you can do that online. You don't have to get a lawyer or pay a lawyer or anyone. You can just go online, change it, and then it's done. And Exploratorium will get the money when eventually time comes. But also the tax efficiency of using IRAs, because if you give your IRA money to your children, they're going to have to pay ordinary income taxes to take that money out. Whereas we are a nonprofit, so we don't pay any taxes. So we get the full amount. So, for example, you have $100,000 and you give it to us, it's $100,000. Whereas if you have $100,000 and you give it to your kids and they pay 25% tax, they get $75,000. So it obviously depends on your individual situation as to what you would like to do, but pre-tax money like an IRA, 401k. Also, Jason talked about appreciated securities. It's also really good. Why don't you talk a little more about that as to why that's good for plan giving?
Absolutely. And David, with that explanation on IRA giving, there's a job for you at Bernstein when you're ready. If the Exploratorium will let us borrow you. That was awesome. With respect to appreciated securities, for folks who are long-term investors who've owned stocks like Microsoft or Nvidia, maybe you have an S&P 500 index fund that you've had since the aughts and it's up, hundreds of % over time cumulatively. And you're looking at that and you're thinking, wow, what can I do with this? Well, if you give those shares to the Exploratorium, you do two things. You've fulfilled your philanthropic goal. You've also avoided any capital gains tax from that appreciation forever. The Exploratorium doesn't owe any taxes. The organization that you give to doesn't owe any taxes from that. They can sell that and turn it into cash the next day. And so you get also the tax deduction based on the fair market value of your contribution. And all that you've paid for out of pocket, what was the cost to you for that gift? It was just your cost basis, right? It was the amount that you initially paid when you purchased the asset. So this is a great way, particularly, some of the phenomenally successful technology companies that are here in our backyard. I think about Nvidia or Apple. These are stocks that are in almost everybody's portfolio at some level. The appreciation is in the hundreds or the thousands of percentage points for people who've been long-term investors. Even just giving one share is infinitely better than writing a check of an equivalent amount on an after-tax basis for you. So I'm always happy to help people think through how to do that, but giving appreciated stock is great. And I guess, David, for folks who do want to do that with the Exploratorium, should they just reach out to you and to Heather? Is there somewhere they can go online to do that if they'd like to?
I would definitely suggest reaching out to me. You can do it. You can give the information is all online as to how to do it on our website, along with our tax ID number. And so you can do it online if you want to, but definitely the person touch, I think, is really the best way to go with regard to something that's a little more complicated, like how do I do this or how do I do that? Once we have a process and put in place, we process everything, we sell it, generally speaking, the next day, and that's the value or whatever that value is. Also, with regard to unusual assets, we have a gift acceptance policy as well, as they mentioned in their in the slides. So definitely, if it's cash, it's obviously cash. Stocks and bonds can be liquidated and such like that. But when you have jewelry or a house or something like that, that needs to be discussed with us directly. So again, as I keep on saying, come see me.
What about crypto? For any crypto?
We take crypto. We do. It's in our gift acceptance policy. If anyone out there is thinking about dumping a whole bunch of crypto that you can actually sell. But we have a method through which to sell the crypto as well. So we do take it.
That was the number one question that Marisa and I got in 2021. We didn't get it in 2022. So now that crypto is back, that question is back, and you guys are ready. I love it. Mm-hmm. Any last questions either on the call or in the room. Scott.
The federal estate tax exclusion was it like 13 million?
Yep, just over.
So if you die and
Per person, by the way. If you're married, you can double that.
Yeah, okay. But then if you die and let's say you give it to your kids, there's no tax. Is that correct?
If it's below that threshold, that's correct.
Below that threshold, yeah, okay.
And you die in a state like California, which doesn't have a state estate tax, because certain states have a lower threshold than the federal. But at the federal level, you're absolutely right.
Very good question. Thank you. I think it's time for us to wrap it up. So thank you everyone for joining, both in person and virtually. I hope you've enjoyed our presentation, and always reach out to me at dsuite@exploratorium.edu if you have any further questions. I'm happy to help you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, everybody. It's been great to see you and meet you. Marisa, thank you so much for joining us virtually. It's great to see you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a joy.
We'll have a tour of the Exploratorium next time you come out to San Francisco, I promise. I really appreciate getting to meet everybody today. Again, thank you, Scott, so much for facilitating this. And I'll leave some business cards of mine just by the door there on the table. If anyone wants to connect after on their giving, any other questions from this presentation, let me know. And then we'll share the slides from the deck, David, with you, and you can feel free to send that out to the participants as well if it's helpful.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.